Let us say that we want to create an application, a Windows application like this. So when we click on the student and this the view menu, it gives us the students present in our database. So you can see the details: student ID, first name, last name, email, password, and gender. And also there is an action button in which we have one button for each row. So when we click on, for example, this first row, then we can see the details of this person in another Windows form. So let's say I want to update his name, that his first name is Mehmet and the last name is as it is. So when I click on save, so it says that button has been, the information has been saved. And you also notice that in our previous Windows form, the data has also been shown. So how can we do this? Let us see today. So I close this one. I also close this one. So just I created one Windows form and I added one grid view here, and this is a text box and one search button. So I just give some different background colors and also change the color of this grid view to white, and you can adjust it from here. Also, as you saw that every row was in different colors, so if you want to give a different colors, you can go to this alternate row default properties, you can go on here and you can change the colors. For example, I just change this color to some darker color, so you can select that for every next row the color will be something like this. So if you want to change the colors, my foreground is white, the selecting background color and selecting foreground color. So when we select a row, its color will become different. So you can play with these different properties. So just most important one is this one. And we just added one menu here, so you can easily take a menu strip from here, drag and drop it, and now you can add anything that you want. So I just add one view item here and double click on this view item, and in this view item uh, just I write the try block and the catch block in case if I have any exception. I catch that exception here, so in case of the exception or error, I am showing that exception, what was the exception message. So using message box dot show, so the exception object has a message property and I am showing it here. So here what I'm doing, I just created a method load grid view, which is down here. So whenever I click it, so this function will be called. So we are coming here. What I'm doing is initially I assume that my grid view does not have any data source or any data to show. Just you can even delete it, doesn't matter. And here what I did is data grid views column dot clear. It means if we have any columns in our data grid view, all those columns will be deleted first. So before showing it, I am deleting all of them. So as usual, we create the students object, and then we are using this function get all students. So this function of the student object will give us all the students present in our database. So if we look at this student get all students method, we go to here, get all programs and get all students. So here you can see that we have used this query select all from students. So, and then we are calling the function of data access dot execute query. So we are passing this query, it will go and call this method, and what it is doing, it is creating a connection to our database, and then it creates object of this command, and then using SQL adapter it will copy the data from database and put it in this DT using this fill method. So once all the data has been copied from database into my data table, then we just return it. So all the information in DT will be returned. So So it will return data access will return to students object, and again we are returning it, so it will also give back. And finally this method will give us that data table with all the student information, and we are showing that in data grid view 1 data source. Now as you saw that this is only the data that we displayed from students, but I also showed you that there was one column, last column, which has some buttons in it to click on it. So this code is what it is doing is it is adding one column, last column with buttons. So we create the object. So since we are creating a data grid view button column, so this says that we are going to add button. So to add a column with buttons, we use this data grid view button column. So we create the object of that column, and we give a header text, the action, that is the heading. On top it will show the action, and for each button what text you want is just we say that we display the details on the buttons. And also we give a name for those buttons, and we say that we are using the name of the button. So this is the name of the button and the text of the button as a value. So we are going to check, maybe we need it, that we are going to check which value has been clicked, so we can use this text to see that if details has been clicked or not. And you can set a width for it, that what will be the width of that. And then finally once we create this column, we need to add it into the grid view. So we are saying the grid view 1 dot columns dot add our this created data grid view button. So if I just show you, click on here, so you can see the action is what the heading means. This is the action it is written, and the text is the text which is written details on each button. This is what, and for each button we give a name. So this is what we mean by it. So once we, and also notice that after reading the student information, so it will first show the information and then we add this column. So that's why it is in the log. You can also add anything else. For example, if you want to add a text box, then you will use a text box column. If you want to add a checkbox, then you will be using checkbox column the same way that you want. So it depends on, we can add other controls, as I said, to the grid view. So this one will display the data from our data table, and also add a new column with the buttons for each. So this one has done, that's it, as I showed. And this code will help us bring the data and show it like. Now the next step is when I click on this, details, yes, let 1 2 3 go. So the next thing is when I click on details, it should give me the details in another form, student details form. So here I get the details, and even I can edit them, and then I can save them. But once I save them, it also shows here immediately. So what I need is generally, first of all, I also need, if I want to update this grid view, once I click here, then I need, for example, if I say Mehmet Hancher, and then I update. If you notice here, this what happens here. So you can see that Mehmet Hancher has been updated. So two things I need. One thing, I need the object of this form now, so that from here I can call back that function, the functions of that object. And the second thing that I need is this student's ID. If I get the student's ID, I can get the details of the student and display here one by one. So let us try to do that. So when I click on here, I want to get the student ID and the details. So how can we do that? On the grid view, when I select the grid view and in the properties, and here are the events, there is one event that we call it cell click event. So if we consider that these are cells, these are all cells in grid view cells, we call them cells. So when we click, and you can imagine that this is also a cell. So I am interested in the click of this cell. Whenever this cell is clicked, then I want to read this ID. So we use this cell click event. So I double click on that, and over here, one important thing that I just want to show you. Think like this data grid view as a two-dimensional array. So the index of this one will be 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, 5, 0, 6. And for this one, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, so on and so forth. And so each column, each row, this is the row, this is 0th row, the first, the second row, 0th column. It is also, by the way, you can see it is sorting by using the name. You can sort them, by the way. So this is 0th column, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So you can see that this is the 6th column. And I want to read the first column's value. So this is what first we need to share. If the clicked event, or if the clicked area, or if the clicked cell's index is equal to 6, in this case, my columns of the button column is the sixth one, sixth index. So if my E means, here you can see that the event, so whenever we click on the data grid view, one of the cells, this method will be called. And it also gives us the information in this data grid view cell events args that which cell has been clicked. So this E will contain information. So from E we are selecting the column index. So in this case my column is 6. If the click here, if click has happened, we are not interested. If we break point here, and if I click here, now you can see the click index here is 2. It means that we have not clicked on the last button. We have clicked somewhere here, 0, 1, 2. So we are not interested when somebody clicks here. We are only interested when someone clicks on the 6th index column. So in your case, if you have just 3 columns, then your action button will be here. So you will be searching for in column index 2. So if e dot index is equal to 6 and e dot row index is greater than or equal to 0, to make sure that the data is starting from here, so we make also sure that it is positive or equal to 0. And then we want to read the student ID. So this is how we read the data from a grid view. Look here. Grid view dot rows, it means rows. These are rows. We are talking about rows. So this says the e dot row index, which row has been clicked here. So we are selecting that row. For example, if I click here, we are selecting 0th row. And from that 0th row, because in this 0th row, you can see many data are here. There is also student ID, first name, last name. I am interested only in reading this cell. So we are saying cells 0 means the 0th index cell. This is the ID is here. If you want to read the first name, then you will provide 1. This index should be 1. So from these rows, the selected row index, we select the cell 0, and then we are reading the value. So dot value, and convert it into a string. And since we need it in, this value is basically an object, as you can see. So we convert it into a string and then parse it into an integer. So this will read the value of the student. So if we want to see it, for example, if I click on the second row, details, now you can see that the column index is 6. It means I click the button, And also we can see that row index is greater than 0. So I click the second row. And now if I press F10, or you can press F10 or F11. So I just press F10. So you can see that we have read the student ID, which is 3, using the data grid view, rows, and then reading the cell or the column that we want to read. And the next thing is we need to create the object of this new form. And since we need to send the student ID, which has been selected here, so this ID will be selected as the parameter into this forms constructor. And also we send the object of this, means this class, which is test home. Why we are sending them, we will see in a moment. So we create the object of test details form and send the student ID and the object of this current form. And we are showing that details at start position manual, means wherever you want to show. I just said that make it a full screen, or I'm just showing it on the right side, not the full screen. So position means we are getting the position of the screen, that our screen of our computer, and then we are showing it on the right side. This is some mathematics we have done, and then we are showing the show dialog. So let us look at the forms details class. The first thing that I have done in test details is there is a method there. I changed the constructor, and here, since we are receiving an ID and we are receiving the object of this test home form, so I have written test form as parameter. Once I receive them, I need to copy them or store them in a local variables of this test detail class. So I created a student ID, ID, and just had to make sure that we don't have any wrong ID coming. I initialized it to -1. And also test home object, and I set it to null. And now I can copy the values which I have, actual values which I have received from my test home class, and also the ID as well as the object of my test home. Once I store them, the first thing is that I need to show them here in these text boxes. And to show them, the method that I used is when on this form, when I double click anywhere, there is a load event. So load event will happen when our form is ready to show. So all the controls are ready. So those will be loaded. So that is the best place where I can show my student. So I create the student object, and then I use this function get student by ID. So this, since I have used this, I created one method get student by ID. If I know the student ID, I can say select static from students where ID is equal to this ID, and this one will execute it and return a data table for me. So I just say that in the data table is equal to student.get student by ID, and I pass the student ID which I received from the test home. And if it has some rows, so we just count them. So data table.rows.count. If we have if we have that student, then we are showing in text box id.text. So this is the text box ID. So and this is text box in first name, last name, email. So how we are showing it from data table, we are reading the rows, which row, or we believe that there is only one student. So we are reading the 0th row, and from 0th row, we are reading the which column. So we can give the index of the column as well as we can give the name of the column. So better to give the name. For example, this will read the student ID. This one will read the first name, last name, email, password. So once this is executed, these will be, filled. But for gender, this is a combo box. We are just selecting that and the gender is equal to, we just selected 0, initialized it with 0. And if the value inside is female, then we are selecting index to be second one, because second one contains female, and else we are showing the male here, and that's it. So once we click the details from here, it will show that student's ID, name, first name, all the details. Now the interesting thing, what happens once I change it and then save it? So if we look at the save, we just created a student object, and we are making sure that we have the correct values for gender, and we just initialize it to female, and if it is equal to 1, then we are saying. Now the method, student object dot update method, and here we are giving all the data that we have read from the student ID. The student ID is already, we have here, so we have already read it. And the next parameter, we read the text box. I suggest you to use the trim, so that if there is any problem with the data, you can, if there are some extra spaces, you can delete them. Similarly, we read the last name, text box, email, password, and gender. So we are selecting the gender and giving it to this update method. So in the student, we created an update method. This is a update method. So you can see the parameters. We also all provided the parameters, and we have already written the query. So update the student, set first name, last name, where ID is equal to this ID. So this ID is the last name, and it will automatically display updated. Now we also want to show the updates in this form also. As soon I click on this update button, we also need to show them in the grid view. So this is what I am doing. If result is greater than 0, it means we updated the student table. We are just showing a message, and we are making sure that our home object is not null. If it is not null, then we are calling a method which we call it load grid view. So if we go to the home, and if we search for the method where is load grid view, so this is the method. What this method is doing, it is just reading all the students' data and then adding that column and showing us again. That's it. So this is how we need this home object. So using this home object, we are calling the methods from that. So this is one of the public methods, remember. We created a public method, and we just call it, so it will automatically display the details for us. So this is how we did, this is how it is updating it actually. This is the method that is showing the details in the, once we click the save button. So let me show you. This is the student, and then these are the, let's say we see the details, and let's say I changed it to Anila. And now notice that this name will be changed. We are in form, student form, but I will make changes in the, show the changes here also. So when I click on save, you can see this one has also been changed. The reason is that using the home object, I mean this object, I am calling its method. So once I call that method, it is doing something and then showing the data. So this is how we can show the summary of the data and then details of the data in another form. Or if we want to make updates to them, this is how we can do it.